I have this habit of compulsively scrolling through Facebook Marketplace. It's practically the only reason I keep the app around since it's been ad-ridden trash for like a decade. It's fairly harmless as habits go, but every now and then it compels me to stop what I'm doing and go get a thing. Like these 100-year-old toilets to put in my house that does not yet exist. God forbid somebody else get there first and have the 100-year-old toilets instead of me. Anyway, it was a similar deal with this log. American holly is one of the whitest types of wood, and it isn't often this large in diameter. It also needs to be kiln dried as quickly as possible to preserve its light color, or it will stain with fungal infection. Ideally, it's harvested in winter to give some extra leeway. This one was cut down in June and had been on the ground for over a week when I got to it. So I had to pull this whole milling and drying operation out of my ass in a couple days. Luckily, I have too much stuff and was able to throw something together. For the milling, I put the 36-inch bar and ripping chain on my old electric chainsaw. I hadn't actually milled anything with it yet, so I didn't have a proper milling jig. To start out, I set up 2 scrap pieces of lumber to guide a cut down the middle of the logs, and clamped a couple pieces of wood to the chainsaw bar to slide along the rails.
Beautiful wood.
It hasn't turned gray yet.
Nope. Bark's only like 3/8 of an inch thick.
Neat texture. This jank-ass setup managed to make a nice flat surface. Too bad it wouldn't stay that way as it dried. I used the rails to cut both logs down the middle first. The flat faces would guide subsequent cuts. To mill the slabs, I cut a pair of 2-inch spacers and clamped them to the saw with a board to scoot along the previous cut. For as much of this work I'm likely to do, I may never actually make an adjustable steel jig. It looks pretty stupid, but you can't argue with free. This cut took 23 minutes to give an idea of the time involved. I took breaks throughout. It takes some physical effort, and the motor probably appreciated the rest too. Set up a makeshift kiln with a couple sheets of insulation foam and some scraps all taped together, left over from the addition my parents built. There wasn't enough to insulate the floor, so I just put down plywood. For heat, I stuck a space heater in one end. Now, before everyone starts screaming about fire hazard, I know. Nothing about this is ideal. I had to come up with something quickly using stuff I had on hand because of how sensitive this wood is to staining. It couldn't really go outside either because it seemed liable to fall apart the second it encountered weather. And for what it's worth, at no point did anything catch fire. Just maybe do a better job than me if you try this at home. Makeshift kiln is all loaded up. Got my space heater stuck in the side. A couple of baffles with foam placed in there just so it doesn't roast the shit out of what's immediately in front of it. Jumble of wires my dad put together as a temperature controller. It's set for 120 degrees Fahrenheit right now, so when it gets to that point, indicated by this thermocouple I put in the middle, it'll shut off until it cools off half a degree or something and then come back on. Really should have some kind of fan in here to circulate the air, especially with how little room there is around everything. But I haven't found the one that I am looking for, and it's getting dark, so I'm about to just shut this up and see if it comes up to temperature. This noise means there is too much water in the wood. It's not even going to measure it accurately at this point. According to the meter, it came up to temp just fine, but it turned out this was only because of the poor circulation. The hot air was just sitting at the top of the kiln. Well, I've got a fan in the back of the box now to circulate the air better. Otherwise, this wasn't all going to dry evenly. Fortunately, with all the extra convection, it's struggling to get up to temperature. So I'm gonna have to do something I didn't want to do. Now it'll just be recirculating and reheating the same air rather than trying to heat and shove in fresh air the whole time. This should be alright for the lower temperatures, but I'm probably going to have to figure something else out as I start raising it later on. To raise the temperature as the wood dried, I added 750 watts of heat lamps, a second space heater, and piled every scrap of insulation I could find on top of the kiln. Since it was getting hotter in there, the space heaters were back outside. About halfway through, I swapped all the slabs around, top to bottom and end for end, to even up the drying and make up for the limited circulation space. I also tried piling a bunch of steel on top to keep the warping down, but it was too little too late. There probably was not enough room for the amount of weight it would have taken to matter. This setup was capable of about 150 to 160 Fahrenheit, still shy of the 180 that would have finished off the recommended kiln schedule. The moisture content still came down to 12%, good enough to prevent staining during storage. So I took a sample of the wood and planed it, tried to get under just the very surface that dried out the quickest. It does seem to have a little gray to it underneath. I think I did about the best I could under the circumstances. Just for reference, there's a piece of maple. Definitely more beige. And here is another chunk of holly, a much smaller one that I just let air dry, harvested in winter. And you can see more significant discoloration in this one. So at least we avoided that much. I attempted two methods to correct the color using oxalic acid, wood bleach, and regular household bleach, which I read might also do something. So I gave it an hour and a half or so, rinsed everything off, let it dry. The wood bleach actually did a pretty good job. You can see the original surface over here is significantly grayer. It took away that gray tinge, made it more of a cream color, I guess, and it's slightly lighter overall. Meanwhile, the bleach just don't do that, I guess, at least not on holly. And there's my air-dried sample. It even did all right on that. That's the area that I did with the wood bleach. Not all of the discoloration's gone. Still got some streaks in it. But I'd say that made it salvageable for certain items, at least. And here it is again, indoors, in case that changes anything. I don't know how well the difference is showing up on camera. This is an untreated piece right up next to the wood bleach area. The difference is subtle, but it is definitely worth doing on a finished product. You've got a distinct, slightly greenish gray tinge in the darker spots here, untreated, and this makes it more what you would expect of not moldy wood. That's about all I got for you right now. Before I do anything with all this, I'm going to have to try a little bit harder with the kiln to get it down to 6% moisture content for indoor use. In fact, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with all of this. It's not exactly the type of wood that people typically have this much of in large pieces. But whatever I do, it'll show up on this channel sooner or later. So I'll see you then.